There's something I have come to realize recently, and that's that the anger I feel is probably never going to go away completely. You know, there's going to be times where, and most times, where it's stowed away and I'm all right, and you think you're past it. But as I continue to be no contact and I'm able to gain more and more perspective on my past and what happened, the problem is I don't think I could get past the anger because I keep remembering shit. And that's the problem. And I think that's the problem a lot of us have. And it's been a couple weeks since I made a video. I've been busy and been had a lot of stuff going on. But I've noticed, some of my followers and some people I actually am pretty friendly with on Facebook, having similar issues where, they've been no contact for a while and they think they're okay, and then boom, back comes the anger and the self-doubt and those flood of emotions and feelings that have been a monkey on your back for so long, and it comes rushing back. And, you know, people feel, you're back to square one. It's never going to get any better. And that's not true. You know, I've come to realize that I think I need the anger. I think we all need the anger. I think the anger is what's protecting us at this point, especially when you're no contact. Because the anger is what will keep you from going back and allowing your abuser back into your life. Now I'm far past that point. Never is the time where I have said, as difficult as it's been at times, there has not been one time where I said, in the 5 years I've been no contact, where I've said, gee, I wish I could talk to my mother. Wow, I'd like to bounce this off my father. I'd like... No, not once. Not once. So what that tells me is I've moved past the stages of the guilt stage, which I never really had, to be quite honest. My guilt is basically centered around, my daughter not being able to have the relationship I'd like to have with her. I did have some guilt over how things went with me and my ex-wife, at the end, but it's minimal. There was issues, and if you're a follower of mine, you know the issues. But in regards to my parents, there's never been any guilt, and I think that's what makes me a little different than a lot of narcissist survivors. Is a lot of you feel a guilt or an obligation towards your abusers, especially if they're your parents. I guess my hating my mother from the first time she laid her hands on me was almost a blessing, because from that moment on, that alleviated any guilt that I might have in my life, towards them. My staying around them was based out of fear of failure of not having them around, that you feel like you're a perpetual, they make you feel like you're a perpetual child, that you never ever grow up, and that's how they kept me, and that's how I think they keep a lot of you who aren't hindered by guilt. You're hindered by fear of being, as you look at your parents almost as a safety net, especially Generation Xers like me. Our parents are way too fucking involved in our lives to this day, and it's all Gen Xers. And I've talked about this in my two narcissistic baby boomer videos, where I talk about that generation and its negative effect on my generation and the millennial generation and Generation Y. It's far reaching, and it's because we allow them in our lives, and they're there because that's how they're trying to stay relevant, and they're feeding off of our fear as a generation of being without them and failing and not having their safety net, where meanwhile they're just doing it to keep themselves relevant. We don't need them, and as a generation, you got to get them out of our lives. But as I was saying, the anger is what I have my issues with, right, especially right now, because it's as I said, the longer I stay in no contact, and the more that I remember, and the more that gets triggered and comes to mind, the angrier and angrier and angrier I get, because then you have to go back, and then you go right back to the moment in time, and now you're going back to a moment in time with clarity, because you don't have that narcissist, that abuser, trying to cloud your judgment now, and now you're there. It's just you and your memories. Nobody there to cloud it, and you will remember it the way it went down. And you go back to that moment in time, and then that anger comes back again. And you get sick of it. On one end, you need it, because you need the memory, you need to remember it. But on the other hand, you're just sick and tired of being angry all the time. And you just want it to go away and not be angry. And you want to go through a day without an angry thought or a bad thought, and you can't do it. And it's so frustrating. But it's better than being in the situation still and being abused. Once you're no contact, and the longer you go no contact, you get back to figuring out who you are and who you are supposed to be and what you like. When you're around the narcissist, it's always about them and what they like and what they want, and you don't even think about what you like. You don't even know what you like. You don't even realize what you like, because an existence around the narcissist is all about them. I stopped even considering what I liked and what I wanted, in my teen, because what was the point? It's funny, because my wife's like she's 13 and a half years younger than me, and she's bullheaded. If she wants to do something, she's gonna do it. And about a month ago, she decided she was gonna learn to skateboard, and she borrowed a board from one of her friends and went over to the hockey rink and just started She fell a couple times and then got the hang of it. And I was a pretty good skateboarder when I was a teenager. I was pretty good. Not great or anything, but I liked it. And I just stopped. So I walked over there while she was skating. And at 41 years old, I just jumped on the board and took off with it. Like, just like it was, like, once I got my balance, like, it took me like 2 or 3 steps to get my balance, but once that was it, boom, it was back. Boom, it was back. And as I was skating around the rink on the skateboard, I flashed back to the last time I remember being on a skateboard. And that was or not even the last time. I think it was like a flashback to my most constant memory of being on a skateboard. And that was always going in between my house and my friend Matt's house, who I talked about. His parents stood up for me in that video. I can't remember the title right now, what I had titled it. But that's where I used to do, because it was a pretty good route down to his house. And I remember as I'm kicking around, all of suddenly this feeling of dread came over me, like in my chest. And then all of a sudden, and then suddenly I had the vision in my head. I was on my skateboard at 15 years old, coming back from Matt's house, going home. And that feeling of dread, like I was there again. I could feel it again. That dread at 15 of walking back into that house every time I had to do it. And I kind of snapped out of it, and I got mad because I look around at my surroundings. Blue sky, palm trees, it's 85 degrees. It's a beautiful sunny day. And now these people are back in my head at 15 from stuff that happened at 15. Because that was a house of horrors. And that's where where you get upset over the setback, or you feel like the setback, because you're standing in this beautiful place or living where you want to live. You're 41 years old. You just literally just jumped on a skateboard and took off with it like you were 15. And something that should be so fun and something that you actually love to do, that you realize you could still do this thing you used to love to do as a kid. And the first thing that pops into my head is this feeling of doom and dread of going back to my house, because that's what it triggered. And I'm angry. Like, why does this have to, like why can't I get past this anger? But I'm also glad it happened, because it's like, oh yeah, that's right. That's what it was like. That's why you have so much anger. I talk about it with my wife, and she has the same problem with her parents as I do with mine. As the problem is the reason why we don't go back. Why I don't go back to New Jersey, she doesn't go back to Brooklyn. And it's really more me than her, but she doesn't want to see them. She wants nothing to do with her family either, and she's basically alluded to the same thing I'm about to say. The reason I can't go back at this point and see either my mother or my father, especially my father, is I don't know. I can't trust myself that I'm not going to end up in the back of a police car, because the more I remember, the angrier I get, and the angrier I get, the more I want to punch his fucking lights out. Because I think it's the only thing he'll truly understand. But I don't want to do it. I don't want to be that. You know, I said before, I had a career of beating people up. I made a career of physically beating people up, and I don't like it, and I don't want to do it, and I don't want to engage it, and I don't want to engage them, because even if I do knock him out, then they're still going to get what they want, because then they're still going to try, to engage at that point, even if it's in a courtroom, or who knows what setting. They don't care. It's about the engagement. And you know that's the part of the anger that bothers me. Because I know I lived 20 years just detrimentally to my own well-being. Every person I fought at work was really my family, every time. And if I couldn't get out my aggression on them, on the amount of fights I got into, it ain't gonna happen with him either. Because that type of anger, I don't know what you do with it. You know, and for me, in some ways it's gotten better, in some ways it's gotten worse with no contact. I find it to be, I have a, I, my anger is less heightened at all times than it used to be, but when it comes, it comes. Whereas when I was up there in years past, like, I was just always angry all the time. It was just a constant state of anger, and then it could spike at any, depending, but it was always. Now I'm pretty happy most of the time until I get triggered, and then the anger comes intensely. I think the second part, I think that way. If you're going to have to deal with anger, it's better than being angry all the time. So, and it sucks because that's where my daughter is. Today's her 11th birthday. Tried to contact her, tried nothing. So, I think this was my last attempt to contact her until she contacts me. I got to be done with it. I got to be done with it. So, I know a lot of you struggle with the anger. I know a lot of you struggle with, you've been no contact for a while, and you feel like, no matter what, it just doesn't get any better. You don't want to go back and deal with your abuser, but you don't know how to heal yourself. And that's what you gotta, if it's at that point, you do have to try to seek out a therapist and get somebody to talk to professionally. YouTube's great, the channels are great, it's great for support and inspiration, but YouTube can't be your only source of getting better either. You have to be able to, somehow talk to somebody professionally if you can, because it does matter. I always felt better when I talked to a therapist. And it doesn't mean you have to have a therapist all the time the rest of your life, but you should find somebody you can trust and it can relate to narcissism. It's like you might want to go for a couple months, couple weeks, you break it off, you go back, and next year, that's very typical with narcissism, narcissist abuse survivors. It comes and goes. Some weeks, some weeks you sit down, you don't have anything to say. You don't, so you may not need to go for a while. You need to back off, get some perspective, build up some more emotions and reanalyze. So yeah, try to seek out somebody. If you're feeling that way, try to seek out somebody professionally as well. It's great perspective. I mean, granted, YouTube's great, and you know, but there are some wackos out there as well, which I've seen. So so if you're feeling that way, definitely seek out a therapist. All right, everybody. Let me know what you think. Thanks for your comments. Sorry I haven't made a video in a couple weeks. It's been a little busy, a lot of stuff going on. Let me know what you think. Please subscribe if you haven't. Almost at 1,000 subscribers, so thank you for that. I do find that amazing that almost 1,000 people want to know what I have to say. Just me sitting on my couch talking into my webcam. So I do appreciate everybody. I know if you're following me for some advice and some stories, maybe some support. So I do appreciate that, and I thank you. And if you would have told me a year ago when this channel kind of started that I'd have 1,000 subscribers in a year, I'd be like, wow, okay. But I guess so. So thank you very much. And as I've said before, feel free to share any of my videos anywhere you like. Comment and like and share and subscribe if you haven't. This is Ollie Matthews. I'll talk to you all again real soon. Thanks. Bye.